Welcome back. This is Metropole Business Center. On this part of the show, we get into an in-depth conversation on a new global standard for wireless communication. That's the fifth generation mobile network, commonly known as 5G. What is it all about? What opportunities does it present? We'll discuss this further with Alex Owiti, who is a tech commentator and analyst. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Very well. Let's begin by unpacking what 5G is. What is it? What are its features?
So, as you know, historically, we've come from 1G, that is in the 80s, to 2G in the 90s, and then 3G in early 2000, and then now we proceeded to 4G, and now we are in 5G. So, basically, these are all global standard wireless networks that have been developed, from the evolution of mobile technology that we've seen currently. But if we go into the features of 5G, 5G in itself has more capacity in terms of the broadband network. It's more reliable, has low latency in terms of connection, and therefore with 5G we will be able to experience much more better speeds in terms of downloads and uploads, which of course peak rates of up to 20 GB or gigabytes, if you like, of data. So it's a good technology in itself, and this is where the world is going because of the mission critical things that we've seen, especially in the fourth industrial revolution, where we're seeing the world is digitizing itself, where we're seeing the Internet of Things. So this is where we're going to be with 5G.
What's the main difference between 4G and 5G?
Basically, when you look at the difference, is more from a quality perspective, and this comes in terms of wireless technology that is in 5G. When you compare it, you realize that when you're using 5G, you'll be able to use the spectrum much more better. The quality is also much faster, and more reliable than the 4G network that we're currently in. So that difference comes in those aspects. And from a technical perspective, as I've said, usability of the spectrum will be much more better, and even in terms of power. So that means if you look at the bottom line in terms of costs for telecommunication operators, it is much better. And then, although it will require a lot of cellular networks or cellular cells to be around the environment where it's operating, you will require a lot of cells so that because it's sort of like a air connectivity, and that's why we're talking about the wirelessness in it. So that's actually the difference when you look at it from a technical perspective.
So does it therefore mean it requires a bit more infrastructure behind it to get really the true value of 5G?
Definitely, because compared to 4G, you need a lot of cells, or if you like, cell stations, because it's more of an internet-based kind of a wireless connection. So you need more of those cell stations to be able to interconnect and be able to work efficiently. Unlike 4G, where you have towers that are, are spaced apart geographically, but still you're able to enjoy the mobile data network or the mobile broadband. But for this one, you need to have those cell stations closer by so that you can enjoy the connectivity and be able to do everything efficiently.
What does this mean from a cost perspective, especially for the end user? Is it likely to make the cost of bandwidth more expensive? Is it going to make it cheaper?
From an infrastructure, the cost of bandwidth should be affordable. But when we look at the cost of implementing 5G network, the licensing bit of it becomes more exorbitant, which of course the industry has been discussing this globally, whether in Africa or in Europe. We realize that the licensing costs for 5G in Europe is going to be 50 million euros more. And if you come back home and compare that our licenses have been going to around 2.5 billion Kenya shillings or 25 million USD, you realize that that cost will be doubled or it will be tripled. I've not seen where the discussions are going on in terms of how much or specifically should be the license, but in terms of implementation, from an infrastructure perspective and from a license perspective, it will be costly. So that means that this cost has to be passed to the user at the end of the day. So you might be enjoying, in terms of the cost of broadband, maybe we've come a long way, especially when you look at our infrastructure from a mobile broadband perspective. We have like close to 5 submarine cables. And because of that, our cost of broadband has come down significantly. But now with 5G, because of having those cell stations that need to be closer by so that people can enjoy the connectivity, and especially from an urban perspective, it will be costly. At the end of the day, I'm predicting it will be costly to the consumer who is using it. In fact, if you look at the devices themselves right now, the devices are actually ranging between $700 to $1,000 for you to be able to get a 5G enabled device. So that tells you, even from that cost perspective of a user, from a device perspective, not from a broadband perspective, it's already costly. It's a good technology, but I believe it will be a bit costly to the end user.
Which probably leads me to the question: Is Kenya ready for 5G? Is it something that we need to switch on to, or should we just wait for it to deploy in other parts of the world?
I think the only countries that we've seen deploy 5G successfully are South Korea. And in Kenya, we're still yet to see 5G being deployed because, first of all, we just had 4G the other day. We've not even finished, utilizing 4G at the end of the day. The licenses themselves have been a bit exorbitant. This has also been discussed by some of the vendors who are providing some of the 5G network equipment, if you like. So I don't think we are ready yet. Yes, we are doing the trials. Our internet so far is good. I'm authoritatively saying that, but if you compare us to the rest of the world, Kenya is enjoying good speeds of internet compared to the rest of the world. But are we ready in terms of implementing the infrastructure itself, the licensing bit, which is a
Sorry, we seem to have encountered a challenge.
Yeah.
Probably you could just recap on that.
So I'm saying, are we ready? I don't think so. That's why we're still doing the trials, so that we're able to see if we are able to, first of all, release some of the spectrum, within the market. Number one, the auctioning of the spectrum has been a critical thing. Remember, even when we were trying to implement 4G, some of the media houses have had to let go part of their spectrum so that 4G can be implemented. That means that we still need to have adequate spectrum to be able to implement 5G. And number two, the cost of building this infrastructure has already been predicted to be expensive for some of these even telecommunication companies. And remember, 5G is not only about the mobile technology itself. We're going to see things to do with mission critical implementation of this technology because it depends on the internet. Things like surgeries in hospitals, Internet of Things, and even and even automobiles that are using part of 5G. So the discussion goes beyond the telecommunication network or infrastructure that we're discussing currently. So that cost needs to be discussed extensively within the region and be able to be harmonized so that the telecommunication companies and those who are going to use this technology for the good of the industry do not feel like they're burdened and they're going to pass that cost to the end user.
All right. Are there challenges that probably 5G will present beyond the infrastructural cost and the licensing cost that you've cited? Are there other challenges that probably from where you sit, 5G will present?
Every technology comes with its own challenges. However, it seems that 5G looks like one of the best long-term evolution technologies that we've seen. And therefore, the only worry that comes with it is, you know, the cost to the common man or the person who is using this particular technology. Because remember, it will only be within the urban areas. So the question is, the people in the rural areas, will you be able to enjoy 5G when you're in your village? You know, because at the end of the day, infrastructurally, we are not equipped in the village areas, but we are only equipped in the urban areas, and that also is something that we saw with 3G when it was being implemented. 3G was implemented in the urban areas before it went into the rural areas, but because of the cost of the infrastructure itself. So I feel that is the major challenge, despite the myths that have been discussed before from a health perspective. People thinking that, you know, because of the waves, because there will be a lot of microwaves, you know, running around because of the closeness of the cell stations themselves. But this myth has been debunked by some of the technical guys, especially the guys who are selling the equipment themselves, the vendors themselves, who are selling the 5G equipment. So it has more merits than demerits, if you ask me.
Finally, what difference do you see it making in ICT, in mobile telephony? How will it revolutionize life as we know it?
According to Qualcomm report, we are, first of all, from an economical perspective, we are going to see more than 20 million jobs created because of 5G. Why am I saying so? There'll be, because we're currently depending on video content or entertainment content, there'll be a lot of app developers will be able to do their apps. There'll be a lot of content developers.
All right.
And that's to take up that. I'm saying that in terms of employment purposes, we will see over 20 million jobs being created. And some of them will come with app developers, content developers, and currently we are enjoying a lot of video content. So globally, we are going to see over 20 million jobs being created. But from a global economic output, we are going to see over $13 million in terms of economic output, and over $2 million in terms of the GDP growth for the entire world. So that means that 5G is going to impact us more positively.
Very well. Thanks a lot, Alex, for your insights on the 5G technology. We'll definitely be looking forward to seeing how this technology will probably come onto our shores and what impact it will have on our economy. Let's now take a short break on Metropole Business Center. After this break, we'll get into our gadget review segment.